Today's number is 186. That's the number of real money deals that AI agents running on Claude closed inside Anthropic's San Francisco office last week. Not a demo, not a simulation, a real marketplace, real items, real cash. 69 humans handed the wheel over to the agents, and the agents listed, negotiated, counteroffered, and closed 186 deals amongst themselves. Total transaction value was just north of $4,000. And the humans only showed up at the end to hand over the physical goods. Hang on to that number for a moment. We'll come back to it here momentarily. Well, it's Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. And I hope your week is off to a great start. If you opened ChatGPT this morning, the company behind it broke the contract that had defined it for the last 6 years. That happened yesterday. Also, yesterday, China walked into a $2 billion Meta acquisition that was already halfway done and called it off. An attorney in Omaha has been suspended over using 57 AI hallucinated citations in his work. Last week, AI agents in San Francisco bought and sold things from each other without any humans in the room whatsoever. And the Godfather of AI stood up at the United Nations and called the whole thing a fast car with no steering wheel. Yesterday, I told you the receipts had arrived. So, yesterday, a lot of things stopped being attached to other things. Today, we read what's left. I'm Don Michalik, and this is your Morning Intelligence for Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. All right, here's what we've got today in today's preview. In the lead, we have OpenAI and Microsoft restructuring the most consequential partnership in AI. Azure exclusivity is over, the so called AGI clause is gone. We'll walk through what changed in the contract and what it means for the AI tool you probably use before even listening to this podcast. In the rundown, China blocked Meta's $2 billion acquisition of an AI agent startup called Manus, the open source model that landed last Friday at 1/10 of the price of the competition. And a lawyer has been suspended for using over 57 AI hallucinated citations in a single brief. In the deep cut, Anthropic ran an experiment last week where AI agents conducted real commerce inside its office. And the better model literally made its users more money. And we'll close with a metaphor from the Godfather of AI you'll probably be using yourself by this time Friday. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. And let's start with the announcement that landed yesterday morning across CNBC, Microsoft's blog, OpenAI's blog, Engadget, Yahoo Finance. OpenAI and Microsoft jointly announced that they have restructured their partnership. And the changes are not cosmetic whatsoever. There's actually three things that have changed, and you only need to remember what they mean, not necessarily what they're called. The first change, well, Microsoft's exclusivity is over. Until yesterday, OpenAI's products, ChatGPT, APIs, all of it, could only be served on Microsoft Azure. As of yesterday, OpenAI can serve those products through any cloud provider now: AWS, Google Cloud, Oracle, whoever. If you've been told for the last few years that ChatGPT only runs on one cloud, well, that stopped being true about 8 a.m. yesterday morning. Change number two, the revenue share agreement between OpenAI and Microsoft is now capped, and it expires in 2030. Microsoft's intellectual property license, the one that lets it package OpenAI tech into Copilot, becomes non exclusive and runs through 2032. Translation: every part of the deal that locked these two companies together has been replaced with an expiration date. And finally, change number three, the AGI clause is gone now. The press releases will quietly bury this one, so I'll kind of translate it for everyone listening. The original 2019 deal said this: if OpenAI ever builds artificial general intelligence, the partnership automatically renegotiates. That was kind of like an ejector seat, if you will, written into the contract. As of yesterday, the ejector seat has been removed. Whatever happens with capability, the deal stays with the deal. The plain version of all of this is a lot of the companies on AWS or Google Cloud have been telling their IT teams, we can't natively build ChatGPT for the enterprise. Well, that excuse is now on a short clock. So, why does this matter? Well, if your company already accesses OpenAI through Azure, Today, nothing really changes for you. But if your IT team and maybe even your CFO just got options they didn't know they had last Friday, they probably want to evaluate that today. More cloud providers competing for OpenAI workloads is the most direct path to lower enterprise AI prices in the second half of this year. And for OpenAI itself, this is the company positioning itself for an IPO that requires a much bigger enterprise number than Azure only would ever allow. Here's maybe a rhetorical question I want you to sit with. If you opened ChatGPT this morning, and I'm assuming a lot of you will or already have, would you actually know which cloud it was running on? 5 years ago, you didn't really have to. As of yesterday, that question is starting to mean a little bit more something. The bottom line here, the most consequential partnership in AI just got an expiration date. The tools you use are going to keep working, yeah, but the price you pay, the cloud you pay it through, and the vendor you negotiate with to get it all of that is now back on the table. Ask your IT team what the multi cloud announcement means for your stack. If they haven't seen it yet, well, you just put something important in front of them. All right, let's go ahead and get into today's rundown. And our first story of the rundown, as of yesterday morning, China's National Development and Reform Commission ordered Meta to unwind its roughly $2 billion acquisition of an AI agent startup called Monas. CNN, Bloomberg, and NPR were all reporting this one yesterday. Monas is an agentic AI startup, same category as OpenAI's operator Anthropic's computer use. The product books your travel, fills out forms, manages files, all that good stuff. Founded in China, relocated to Singapore just last year. Beijing's stated reason for blocking this was, quote, concerns about advanced technology transfer to the United States. According to CNN and WAPO, two of Monas's co-founders have reportedly been barred from leaving China while the deal is being unwound. Meta says the acquisition complied fully with the applicable laws and expects an appropriate resolution soon. Two facts that make this story stand out. Meta has already begun integrating Monas into internal systems. And this is reportedly the first time China has blocked a major US tech acquisition of an AI company, not a chip deal, an actual AI tool deal. So what? Well, again, if you use AI agents at work or your company is now piloting them, the supply chain behind those tools is now a geopolitical variable. The agent your company is evaluating in 2027 may exist or may not exist depending on which government allows which acquisition to happen this year. Next time someone tells you the AI race is just OpenAI versus Google versus Anthropic or Microsoft, remember this. Governments are now deciding which tools cross which borders. All right, our second story in the rundown. The Chinese AI lab DeepSeek released its newest flagship model last Friday. Bloomberg, CNBC, and MIT Technology Review all had it. Two variants, Pro and Flash, both fully open source under the MIT license. For the weekend testing and the early benchmarks landed this week, V4 Pro is matching or beating GPT 5.5 and Claude Opus 4.7 on coding, math, and reasoning benchmarks. Here are the audience relevant numbers. The cheaper variant is reportedly priced at around 14 cents per million input tokens. GPT 5.5 sits at $5 per million. So that's roughly one tenth of the cost. The estimated training bill on V4 was around 5.2 million, compared to the billions US labs are spending. DeepSeek's V3 is the model that crashed NVIDIA stock when it dropped last year. V4 is the response to GPT 5.5, which just shipped last week. So what? Well, if you pay for ChatGPT Plus or a Claude subscription, or your company pays for the APIs, the existence of DeepSeek is the reason those companies cannot charge whatever they want. Competition pulls prices down. And for the first time ever, the open source model is genuinely benchmark competitive, meaning the price floor in the AI tools market is now at a Chinese lab's $5 million training run, not a US company's $5 billion compute bill. If your team is locked into any one provider, this is your prompt to ask them, what would we switch to if the price doubled again? All right, our third story in today's rundown. Before you tune out because you think this one's about lawyers, well, stay with me because it is and both isn't as well. As of this month, an attorney in Omaha has been indefinitely suspended by the Nebraska Supreme Court. NPR was the original reporting on this. WOWT, the Omaha NBC affiliate, has the local courtroom details here, and the ethics reporter has the disciplinary docket. This attorney filed an appellate briefing that contained 63 legal citations. Of those 63 legal citations, 57 were defective. 20 of them were full on AI hallucinations, case names that did not exist, opinions that were never written, judges that never ruled. Convincing sounding, yes, but also completely fabricated. Per NPR's reporting and the ethics reporter, this is the first time a U.S. bar disciplinary body has suspended an attorney's practice entirely over AI related filing errors. And it's not necessarily an isolated case. According to court tracking data covering the same reporting, U.S. courts imposed at least $145,000 in sanctions for AI fabricated citations in Q1 of this year alone. The single biggest penalty being roughly $110,000 in Oregon. Here's the version of the story that applies to you, applies to me, and applies to everyone who's listening to this, even if you've never set foot in a courtroom. AI made up 63% of the citations in this lawyer's brief. A trained professional did not catch them, a judge did. And now think about your last week of work. Here's maybe a question to sit with. If a lawyer can lose his license for not double checking AI in court, what is the version of that mistake at your job, at your colleague's job? The deck that you send to your boss, the deck that your boss sends to their boss, the market analysis you put in front of a client, the strategy memo you forwarded with one sided stat in it. What is the 57 out of 63 that exists in your inbox right now? So what? Why are we even covering this story? It's a lawyer in Nebraska. What does it apply to you? Well, again, AI is a tool. It's not a source. The trust and verify gap is the single biggest professional liability we are all carrying right now. And most of us do not have a judge looking over our shoulder to make sure our work is correct. If you use AI to draft something this week, give yourself one rule. Whatever it's cited, verify it before you forward it on to someone else. All right. If you're enjoying Morning Intelligence, can you just do me a quick favor? Maybe take 5, 10 seconds here to send this episode to a friend or colleague. Specifically, maybe that one friend or colleague who keeps asking you what's actually going on in the world of AI. You know who they are. If you share it with them, you help the show grow. And I genuinely appreciate it if you help the show grow. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and get into today's deep cut. Last week, Anthropic ran an experiment inside its San Francisco office. They published the results last Friday on the Anthropic blog, and TechCrunch picked it up over the weekend. They called the experiment Project Deal. It sounds like a thought experiment. It was not. It was real items, real cash, and real people and real agents trading things back and forth. 69 Anthropic employees handed Claude Power AI agents the keys to a private marketplace inside the company. The marketplace was for real things like books, gadgets, stacks, the kinds of things you would swap inside of an office. Over the course of the week, the agents did it all. They listed the items, they browsed the filings, they made offers, they sent counter offers, they negotiated, they closed deals, all the good stuff, right? Humans only showed up at the very end to physically hand over the goods. The final tally here, and here's where you can hear me lean into the microphone because the numbers are wild. 186 deals closed, more than 500 items listed, over $4,000 in real transaction value. And this is the part that's going to live the longest, I think. Anthropic ran the experiment in 4 parallel versions to compare its own models against each other. The agents running on the more advanced Opus model earned an average of $2.68 more per item sold and saved on average $2.45 per item sold as well. Translation here, the pricier AI agent literally made its users more money. Not in a benchmark, not in a lab, in a real actual marketplace with real actual items against other AI agents. So, why is this story worth your time? Well, if your job involves any kind of negotiation, procurement, vendor management, sales, renewals, and if you're listening to this right now, Project Deal is the cleanest preview to date of what is coming to your workflow. The finding that the pricier model makes a measurable financial edge for its users is the kind of result that shows up in a procurement deck within the next 90 days. pay more for the smarter agent, get $2.68 back on every transaction. Now, the second order finding here, and this is the one that gives me a little bit of pause. In this experiment, the humans never spoke to one another. The agents did all the talking. If you're a salesperson, an account manager, a sourcing professional, the most important skill on your resume is suddenly a skill Anthropic just demonstrated agents can do completely on their own. And for a little bit of editorial honesty here, this is Anthropic's own experiment. The company has an obvious commercial incentive to publish pay more for a pricier model. I'm naming that out loud here, and I'm being very honest with it. But also, the agents really did close 186 deals all on their own. And here is maybe another question for you this morning. The last time you negotiated anything at work, a vendor contract, renewal, pay raise, freelance rate, whatever it may be, would an AI agent have gotten a better deal than you did? That's no longer a hypothetical question. We have some data to back it up and some thought experiments to take into the rest of the week. The takeaway here, well, AI agents are in the office. Real money is changing hands, real deals are being closed. The smarter agent made more of the money. The next vendor call you're on, that experiment is going to be in the back of somebody's head. It should probably be in the back of yours as well. All right, some fun stuff or maybe some interesting stuff. Well, let's call it interesting today before we sign off. Last week at the United Nations Digital World Conference on AI for Social Development, Jeffrey Hinton walked onto a podium and called artificial intelligence, quote, a very fast car with no steering wheel whatsoever. Per UN News and Eurasia Review. Some quick context here. Hinton is the Nobel laureate who helped invent the neural network architecture every modern AI tool, including the one you probably used this morning, runs on. He's been called the Godfather of AI. He quit Google in 2023 specifically so he could say things in public that Google didn't want him to say. So when he calls AI a fast car with no steering wheel, well, that's not a pundit, that's a scientist saying it. And he went a little bit further here. Per the UN reporting, he said many intellectual jobs could be handled by machines in the very near future. He didn't bury the warning whatsoever. And I'll kind of give you his metaphor verbatim here because you're going to hear it in a meeting probably this week or sometime next week from someone who heard the same story. A very fast car with no steering wheel. The man who built the engine just told the United Nations there isn't a steering wheel attached. Use that line for whatever you want to use it for. All right, for tomorrow, we have Musk versus OpenAI. That moves into the substantive part of the trial, opening arguments when both sides explain in plain English what they think is actually happening here. We'll have the recap and all that good stuff. Microsoft stocks continue to digest yesterday's restructuring deal, and we're watching whether Meta files anything formal in response to the Manus block. Make sure to tune in tomorrow. And that's Morning Intelligence for Tuesday, April 28th, 2026. If you liked what you heard, hit subscribe from wherever you're listening. Share it with that one friend who keeps asking you, hey, what's going on in the world of AI? You know who they are. I'm Don Michalik. Thank you so much for listening and have a great rest of your Tuesday.